Welcome to our ongoing exploration of creativity in the Enneagram through the lens of the 27 Enneagram subtypes. I'm Samantha Mackay, an Enneagram coach certified through the Chestnut Paes Enneagram Academy. Today, I'm talking with SocialTwo and ESTJ Sue Blair. Sue is well known in the Myers-Briggs community for her engaging presentations about psychological type and holds leadership positions with a number of psychological type groups. Social twos can often be confused for Enneagram 3s or 8s due to their focus on being a leader, being influential, and being highly competent, which is something we talk about. Now, we don't dive into the nuances of the subtypes in our chat, but if you'd like to learn more about that, I've included links below, as well as links to Sue's personality puzzles and her website. Enjoy. We've been friends for a long time, and so it's exciting that we can chat with about creativity today. So thanks for saying yes.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it.
So my first question is, what does creativity mean to you?
I think for me, it took me a long time to believe that I was creative, and I think that's partly nurture as well as my own type. I have a twin sister who is incredibly artistic and creative, which always led me to compare myself and just think that I had no creativity in me at all because it seemed so much less. And also to realize that creativity didn't mean being artistic in the way that she was artistic. So I think it took me into my 50s to realize that I am creative, and my creativity is in very specific areas, and I really enjoy it. Now that I know what it is, I really enjoy it. So creativity to me is creating something that hasn't existed before, very often with the impetus of it to share it with somebody else or to communicate it outside of my own world, but just because I thoroughly enjoy that sharing of knowledge with other people, so that they benefit from whatever it is that I've disentangled, because I think there is a sort of a disentangling skill that people with both my Myers-Briggs type combined with the subtype, I think that it is a way that we can bring something to the world is to just take something complex and straighten it out and then put it across to other people in a way that they understand it. So that sort of creativity in order to communicate it is something that I now see as something that I can do that might be unusual, and something I really enjoy. So that's really how I see it working in my world, I think.
And I've always really appreciated the way you've been able to simplify type and communicate it in a way that isn't simplistic. It retains the complexity, but it's easy to hold on and use and make sense of.
I love using images. I love having an idea. When something sort of dawns on me and I just think, well, how can somebody who hasn't got a lot of depth understanding, start on that staircase of understanding for themselves, and to start at the bottom and sort of take it step by step. I really enjoy that, and it seems to appeal not just to people of my own type. It's not the point of it at all.
No, and I think what you create really speaks to all types, which is highly appreciated in the type community. But I'm curious, that's obviously your professional space. What about your personal space? Is there any creativity outside of that, or you'd say it's predominantly in the professional area?
Interesting. Yeah, interesting question. So I think probably the creative thing that I love doing the most is doing photo books for myself and for other people, to give somebody a gift of a photo book of a time we've shared, time we've enjoyed, a holiday we've been on. I've done many of them, and I think I have a strong sense of composition. So composition is the creative skill. I didn't even think it was. When I go on holiday, for example, anywhere, I kind of think a lot about the photos I'm taking, and I take photos that I think I can piece together that will put together a montage or a collage of a day in the life of whatever it is we've been doing. And I just love getting the whole feeling of that day on a page. And that could have background, like if we're going somewhere in Europe, then I'll take pictures of cobbled stones or walls or the sky or something botanic that's around so that you can have that as a background, and then you've got other things in the foreground. So I do my traveling almost with this end in mind, which I love taking photos for that purpose and putting it all together in a book and giving it to somebody, and they go, oh my goodness, thank goodness you did that, because that describes our whole event. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you give it to people who were also on that trip?
Usually, or yeah, or I've done some for family Christmases, for holidays we've been on, just holidays that my husband John and I have been on, and it's just a lovely reminder, just knowing that they're there. I mean, I'm not looking at them hugely, I'm not spending hours of my time going through them, but I just love the fact that that's a complete version of how I saw that event.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Mm.
And so whether it's the photo books or sort of the presentations, what
Mm.
supports you to be creative?
Visual images, a desire to please other people. Very, very motivated by the gifting of something that I feel has got part of me in it, but also, most of the time the people who I'm giving whatever it is to are in the pictures, so it's sort of part of them too. It's a life experience that you can share, and I think it sort of consolidates that connection you've got with somebody who just really appreciates it. One of my friends who I did an album for, it was a lovely trip. We actually had to Venice with some very good friends of ours, and I just sent them the book, and they opened it and they just said, it's glorious. This is just a lovely representation of our time together.
Because
Love
it's
it. And
so
also I think,
often photos just get lost in our phone. We don't do anything
yeah,
with them
they
these
do.
days.
Yeah, they do, for sure. So I love the whole aspect of that, creating and giving. And I also think there's something about your own creativity that you can get lost in. If it's something that feels like hard work, then it might not be tapping into your creative self. Whereas, if I'm sitting at a computer and I've got my photos and I've got to find a way to put all of those photos in a space with a few words, I just lose myself in a sort of double page spread of photos for an hour or two it could take to just do a page, just to go, that's not right, but I can, I'll add something here, or increase the size of that, or put some color in, or I just lose myself in it. And I think that shows that you're sort of in the zone. You're in that sort of mode of doing something that is got a highly creative element for you in it.
As you say, that sense of solving a problem, and what's the problem that
Mm.
we all lose ourselves in. And I love
Yeah.
for you, it's, photo
Mm.
books or crafting a
Yeah.
presentation. Do
Yeah,
you
that has the same
experience?
feel to it. It definitely has the same feel to it. And I recently did a presentation in Japan where I had to have text in both English fonts and Japanese fonts. And it was just, a lovely thing to put together. And this cultural combination, a culture which I at the time knew very, very little about, but it was sort of so that was another interesting take on it too. But the same feeling occurs when I'm doing presentations as when I do the photo album. So I guess that's, it's interesting in itself. Mm.
Do you ever experience creative blocks? Does that happen?
Yes, I do. I tend to be quite diligent at getting through them, I think. I won't sit and look at an empty screen for all that long. If it's not the right time to do something, then just stop and do something else. And so yes, I do have creative blocks, but I tend to try and muse on something for quite a while and then get the right moment. And then as soon as I'm sitting down, I can sort of do it fairly quickly. Things like writing articles. I really quite like writing articles. I quite enjoy the blank page. It's not something that terrifies me. It's a little bit more worrying when you hit send, because you just like, it's like, oh my goodness, this is it now. But the creative process, yeah, I do get some blocks, but I can generally just chip away until I can write a whole lot of nonsense, and then my ideas will coalesce, and then I ditch the nonsense and start writing something decent.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
You don't, it's not about walking away. It's just like letting the random thoughts come
Yeah.
out until the
Mm.
flow starts.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have a sort of a framework. For example, writing articles, I like to have something in the first paragraph and the last paragraph that connects it. You know, if you've given an example in the first paragraph, then somehow you've reflected on that at the end. So it has a sort of a cycle to it.
And I
Mm.
know when it came to finding your Enneagram type, it was quite tricky because you're a social
Very.
two. And so it looked like you're a three, but three never quite fit
Mm.
well. And so now I know you've known your social two for a little while. How has that shaped things, or how has that understanding shaped things for you? Or maybe even just how do you see creativity through the lens of that social two?
You're absolutely right. It took me a long time to get to Enneagram. It took me to talking to you about it, actually, Samantha. Nobody got there until you came along. So well done, you. Um, I think initially listening to the Enneagram, especially probably coming from a very strong knowledge of type, you know, I was very clear about my own Myers-Briggs type, and hence this sort of reluctance to accept the three Enneagram, because every time I read a three Enneagram description, I was kind of mildly horrified. And I was really, really thrilled to understand, to get to an end point of, yes, this is my type. That had quite a big sort of feeling of landing for me, that, okay, now I get it. And then I could see myself. I think one of the things that is common to twos is that they have a need to be needed. And I think that has fueled my creativity a lot, in that whatever I was going to create, I was always going to share with somebody else. I wasn't really there's not really much point of just keeping it to yourself. You know, if you've got, I wouldn't be somebody that just wrote for me. I'm not very into journaling, for example, although I see the value on it for other people. I wouldn't want to share a journal particularly, not that journals are meant for sharing a lot of the time, but I think that, you know, that need to belong to a group, to feel like you're part of something, to you know, to feel like you're sort of competently putting something out into the world, that you probably make it look fairly simple. You know, I think you spoke earlier about the sort of clarity I have at times to describe something complicated in a simple way. It takes, I think I make it look quite easy, but actually behind the scenes, there's an awful lot of thinking, observing, change, you know, doing something, changing it, you know, having layers of ideas, that, you know, you start off with one thing. And I think that's actually common to most of the creatives I've ever heard interviewed or been involved with, is that that layering, that feeling of, you know, even if you're writing a novel, or if you're writing a piece of music, or doing anything like that, you just keep layering until you're satisfied. And that yeah, that is a really satisfying process to me. So I think that subtype, that social subtype, is really not wanting to do this just for me. It's wanting to do it to share it, and to help other people with it, with an understanding. I think that's where the social two fits in with my creativity.
And you're right, you do make it look very simple. So it's interesting to hear there is a lot of observing and thought and layering that goes on behind it.
Yeah, which I love. I love quizzing with words. I love quizzing with images, and then sort of landing on something that goes, yeah, okay, this is the way I'm going to put it across. I have to say, it's extremely helpful to me to be self-employed, and to be able to have the freedom to do what I want to do in the way I want to do it. I think I would be very hampered if somebody was correcting my work and telling me, no, 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 you can't do it like that. You have to do it like this. And I'd be, okay. I'd find that really hard.
I can see that, actually, the desire to influence and communicate and share something that you think is really valuable struggles if someone else tries to impose their lens on what that is defined as,
Mm,
because it's coming,
yeah.
It's the how do I want to influence others and shape others, and needing to have a lot of
Mm,
control over about how that message goes out.
definitely. There is a sort of a, a need to be in control of my own creativity.
Mm.
I don't want too many people coming in unless they're giving a description of their own observation. So, for example, with doing presentations on type, then I might say, this is how I see intuiting work, or whatever, pick any subject you like. And they go, yeah, but I have an intuiting preference. And for me, it feels and looks like this. And I go, oh, okay, that's really interesting. So let me incorporate that.
Right.
So other observations really help me. But having been doing this for 20 years, I feel I've got a lot of inputs now, but I'm still learning. Without a doubt, I'm still learning. People are endlessly fascinating to me.
Yeah,
Mm.
they really are.
I think two socials do need a lot of positive affirmation. And growing up, when it came to art, my sister got the huge amount of it, which she quite rightly should, because she was, even to this day, she is an artistic genius. I mean, she's a professional artist. She is amazing. So it's not at all surprising that my art scars were particularly deep. It's like, well, she can do that, and she's literally my twin sister, and she's just so darn good at it.
Mm.
So maybe I'm just not. But I did have something in there which I think I found eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So my last question is, what creation, personal or professional, are you most proud of?
I've put together some coaching cards that help people talk to people about Myers-Briggs. I've done them for adults, for teenagers, for educators. And it really does enable conversations in a remarkable way.
Mm.
And I've sold hundreds, maybe a few thousand of them. I mean, not an enormous amount, but I got an email the other day from a teacher who uses them in her high school, with particularly helping people to find careers and just to understand who they are and sort of what. And we were sort of talking about, she said, I use your cards several times a day.
Wow.
And so you just sort of think this one bit of creativity that sort of thought, I thought, how can I put type across in a way that's going to land with people? And I came up with this idea of these personality puzzle cards, and I've trained many people in them as well. They're just changing people's lives on a daily basis. So it's like that sort of domino effect. I sort of flicked the first domino and came up with this idea. And somewhere around the world, people are using these cards to help people understand themselves. And I don't even know about it.
Mm.
But when you do get an email like that, it just really hits home that you've done something that changes things for people. So I would say that's the thing I'm most proud of. Not, I don't get feedback like that every day, but when I do, I just think, oh yeah, maybe changing one person made it all worthwhile, because it's a huge amount of work to get
Mm.
something like that off the ground. Creating cards, getting them printed. Initially, I think I fell in every publishing trap you could ever think of. So it's not it's not an easy process to get something delivered, as it isn't, to write a book and get it published. That's an enormously difficult process. You pick up a book and you read it and you think, oh, that was good. But the effort for that book to actually be launched, that the birthing of these products and these things is much more labor
Mm.
than
That it
than
appears.
we think about when we just sort of pick up a book or pick up a resource or whatever. There's your blood and tears gone into these things,
Oh,
and
so
to
much
think
so.
that it was useful is really great. Yeah.
Mm. And those cards are fantastic. I own several sets of them. Unfortunately, mine are in storage, but that's due to more life
Yeah.
circumstance than choice at the moment. But they are
Oh,
really great
you'll get them out and
resources.
dust them off one day.
One day, one day. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on creativity. And I loved hearing about your photo books. Obviously, very aware of your presentations, but the photo books was great too. So thanks so
Mm.
much for sharing that with me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Thanks very much. That's been really enjoyable. Thank you.